Hi, everybody. I wanted to talk about my improvements on cross-dressing, specifically some factors that I've been trying to do, I've been sort of improving on, but considering I think I've developed my look as best I can. I'll continue perfecting it. Um, I haven't really worked on my voice that much. There's voice, and as I see it, there's voice, and there's slimming down my waist, looking more trim and less bulky, um, to to give off a presence of femininity, um, basically less muscle mass. I don't think I can imagine other factors that really impede my efforts at coming across authentically feminine as a woman, um, other than the voice and slimming down. Now, before I get into my voice, which is the main part of this video, I want to mention about slimming down. Uh, since I've seriously been improving this cross-dressing hobby, this project, I found a lot of factors about it that have helped me. One being diet. I've paid more attention to protein over simply looking at calorie counts. It's probably something that I should have been going for a lot sooner, focusing a lot sooner on. I've switched some foods, not that I've gorged myself, not that I've eaten a lot, quite the contrary. Uh, I've tried several different diet techniques. I've tried like um, going for a while without eating, which is not that hard if you're working all day and then come home and then eat for a while. See, I would come home from work, particularly when I was working at a state facility. I would come home. I wouldn't eat there usually. I wouldn't even really drink there. I would come home around 5 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, and then periodically during the day I would snack. Snacking has always been my method of eating. When I felt hungry, I would eat, and I would be careful and conscientious enough not to overeat. When I felt full, I would put the food away, and my mom would probably say that it's very healthy mentally to do that. However, I wouldn't drink a lot of water, and there were some foods. I'm a chocoholic. I wouldn't say a chocoholic. I love chocolate. I just love the taste of chocolate. So I switched from ice cream, burned dairy, half-gallon ice cream, to some kind of dip, and then I think I switched from dip to an off-brand of Nutella, and that satisfied me for a while. And then when I became more aware of slimming down, I noticed how many calories and perhaps how much sugar there was in Nutella. I switched off of that. I've now gone to yogurt. I looked up foods that were particularly high in protein and very conducive for losing weight. I've bought one of those bottles where it gives the time, the water bottles, where it gives like 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, da 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 da. And you should be drinking the whole thing ideally every day. It's a 64-ounce water bottle. Now, I've trailed off because simply my hours at my morning job have been cut down, and my afternoon slash evening job requires me walking around. I don't have time to drink, so that's awkward. But at least I have the water bottle now. At least I think I'm on a good track towards becoming healthier from what I read, my impression is that drinking more water helps to digest and simply feel more full, consequently eat less. I don't want to starve myself. I want to do it in a healthy manner. So there's the water, there's switching some foods. I can easily cut foods. One of the benefits of being Jewish and following a relatively clear kosher diet is that my mind has an active control over my body. I can decide cold turkey to stop eating a certain food or start eating another food. Um, Perhaps that was one of the reasons why the kosher diet was included in the Torah, in the five books of Moses. Now, there's slimming down. I haven't checked my weight. I might as well mention this. The last time I was at my doctor's office or nurse practitioner's office, I was at 205, something like that, which was really weird because I would hope I would have gone down. Maybe about 5 years ago, I was at 190 or 1. I remember having a stroke. I remember having a stroke. The end of at the beginning of 2018, and I was in the hospital during January, and they obviously measured me. When I came home shortly afterwards, within the next few months, I went to the doctor's office, and it was measured at 180, which is really nice. I was looking forward to slimming down further. I had seen that in the 1960s or 70s, the average male physically fit body was something like 160 or 170 pounds. So I wasn't that far off. Now, unfortunately, at 205, I questioned whether it's simply fat or whether it's perhaps muscle mass. Perhaps it's measuring muscle mass. Perhaps it was a wild goose chase. I still want to slim down. My physique doesn't look fat. It looks relatively more muscular. It looks firm. Like you can see my arm. It doesn't look fat. It looks more muscular. Around my waist, around my hips, it bulges out. But since doing the diet, it's always done that. But since doing the diet, and I'd have to check to see when I actually started. It hasn't been that long, maybe a couple months, something like that. The bulge seems to have gotten smaller. Perhaps over time, the bulge will become more of a sagging sack of skin. Hopefully. So it's good not only for the cross-dressing project, it's also good for my health. And particularly after having that stroke, it's especially good. It's especially something to keep up and maintain. Now, all right, so those are the two factors, the slimming down and the voice. Now I'll get to the voice. I've I've been told that I've had a feminine voice. I was interviewed on a podcast, and I was using a feminine voice. I dressed up for an audio podcast, but it helped me get in the frame of mind. It was a Friday anyway, so I would have dressed up as Samantha anyway. But the person interviewing me said, "That's a good female voice." And she asked me, for a moment, could you speak in your normal voice? And I spoke in this voice. And she said it sounded sort of androgynous. I don't remember the exact words she used, but it's like she couldn't really tell whether it was masculine or I mean, it could go either way. It was sort of in between, which is nice. Now I cough. um, so, all right. So you've probably seen the videos where I'm dressed up and I'm employing my voice as Samantha, my feminine voice. When I talk, when I talk like this, it's it's it feels pretty natural. And so after a while, I've I've thought that perhaps it's not feminine enough. So I've sometimes spoken higher like this, and and it's felt somewhat like a girl, somewhat girlish and somewhat fake or artificial. So I have lowered sometimes my voice to be like this. I feel like I have to put more effort into it, but perhaps I don't have to. Perhaps I'm putting too much effort into raising my pitch. There's a friend of mine who has remarked how feminine my voice naturally is. Now, there are certain qualities about it. I use inflection more often than other guys tend to use. For me, it's natural. I know other female impersonators have had the same ability or the same experience growing up. They just naturally use more inflection in their voice. So I've got that going for me. I've got those factors going for me. It's almost like I was I was born to do female impersonation. And I shouldn't call it cross-dressing. I should call it female impersonation. I've dabbled mentally with the idea of what I would do if I were to go into drag queening, but that's not really my interest in doing all this. It's more of a female impersonation. In other words, seeing how close I can get to actually coming across and impersonating rather than hamming it up or clowning it up as an exaggeration of a woman. And what was the other one? And I identify as heterosexual. So the motivation is not to attract men, although if men did if straight heterosexual men did seem attracted, I would feel flattered because I'm doing it well. It's like a check mark. It's like your teacher gave you an A plus or an A. It would show that something's working right, that I'm on the right track. But I'm not interested in dating men. Anyway, I always feel like I have to explain myself. All right. So there's the look that I've I've come along well with. There's the outfits and the wardrobe. Back to voice. So I had looked a little bit into voice some time back, what factors there were. Uh, Online on YouTube, there are some people who are voice coaches for feminization. They give lessons on on YouTube videos. Um, there's someone named Andrea James who herself transitioned physically from male to female, and she is or has been a voice coach, a paid professional voice coach. So I did one session with her for an hour. I think it was maybe $100, something like that. This was about the same time, like I was covering all three factors: the clothing, connecting with uh, Hanger and Phoenix to define what Samantha's wardrobe style and a basic fashion style would be, uh, connecting with Femme Fever to get makeup tips and to understand simply what goes where. I've improved since then on my own. And three was voice. I connected with Andrea James and we did a phone session, and she said that I did pretty well. I again, I don't remember how she put it, but basically, I did pretty well for that one time. I haven't had much practice. I told her I hadn't had that much practice. So then I looked online. Her website recommended some voice tools. So here's the meat of the video here. Their voice tools. I downloaded um, some voice tools. There's voice pitch, and I can't read the rest of it. I think it's probably voice pitch analysis. And there's something called EVA F, perhaps frequency, EVA capital F. And those have done pretty well. I haven't really used them all that often. I've simply, when I've gone out or dressed up, I've simply talked like this. I've talked like this, perhaps a little higher, perhaps a little higher. Now, I have paid particular attention to aspects of women's speaking patterns. I noticed that they sometimes syllabalize their words. Like a man would tend to say conversation, whereas I've noticed just simply by listening to women speak and listening to women speak on YouTube, they tend to say conversation. Conversation. They tend to end their words on a high pitched note, conversation, as opposed to conversation. A man would say mailbox, whereas I think a woman would say mailbox. And that's something that I wish had gone into more of my videos when I was dressed as Samantha. If I may detract for a moment about voice, I also wanted to mention something else that hadn't really been depicted on my YouTube channel in my videos, but I definitely do in person. And for example, when I was at a restaurant this past Saturday, I was careful to do, I was very proud of it. Sometimes when I was listening to somebody, I would do this. When I'm drinking, I would have only my top few fingers on the glass. I would leave my pinky a little, not like exaggerated like that. I'm very careful not to appear exaggerated because that would be a giveaway as well. I would do it something like this, and sometimes I would typically have my straw and I would sip from the straw. Sometimes when I'm listening to somebody, I would take my straw and I would twirl it around in my glass. It's these instinctive things that I've simply noticed all my life, particularly early on in my life. I was more perceptive. I should still be more perceptive. And when I'm walking, I do the hip sway. Again, not an exaggerated way, but more of a power stride. Not power stride, an assertive, confident stride, swaying my hips back and forth slightly, irregular motion, like a swaying, not a but a flowing swaying. And generally, I think impersonating a woman's movements involves more of a flow rather than punctuation as a man would move in punctuated movements. All right, so I just wanted to mention that it's not just voice. I've also been doing mannerisms femininely when I'm dressed up. All right, so now I get to pitch. Now, just as with makeup, when I got into makeup, I didn't know where, of course, mascara goes on the eyelashes. But aside from mascara, I didn't know what to put on first. I didn't know the order of any of it. There's foundation, there's, let me see, there's corrector, there's not clearance, what was it? contouring and so forth. There's good. It's still moving. There's contouring. There's eyeshadow. There's all that stuff, and it was all new to me. It was still new to me when I around 2021. I was doing a timeline of this earlier. Hasn't been that long ago, but anyway, when I went to Sephora for a makeover, that was chiefly why I went to Sephora. I wanted to learn what the process was, simply putting on makeup. Not expert makeup, not deciding what color variation, simply what goes where and in what order. So I got that. Um, I've all right. So I've perfected that. Now, similarly to that, in terms of voice, I'm at that stage now where I learned about pitch, I learned about tone, I learned about volume. Uh, a woman's biology has a top part of, I guess, a voice box. I can't remember the exact vocal cords, the top part, whereas a man has the top and the bottom. So, of course, you would need to use the upper part of that, and there are certain constriction techniques that I may still have to work on. Although, when I speak like this, I don't feel like I have to constrict my throat very much. Um, I also notice that women use certain consonants. They emphasize certain consonants, consonants like connect, whereas a guy would say actress. A woman would tend to, as I've noticed, a woman would tend to say actress, actress, actor, picture. Again, whereas a guy would say picture. I think that just I would just chalk that up to women being more refined and careful in their pronunciation of words. Maybe it's just a matter of conditioning. Maybe it's considered more feminine to be more clear and crisp when they speak. Anyway, so this morning I sat down and I decided to use these voice tools, these voice tool apps. There's a third one that I recently downloaded called Voice Tools. Well, actually, I downloaded it a while back, but I decided to look into it better. I think Voice Tools is the best. See, I'm not giving anything away here, but if you can see on the screen, you may be able to see on the screen, it has pitch. You can press pitch, tone. You can't see very well, but it has tone C4, C sharp 4, F sharp 3, C3, and I didn't know what they meant. Okay, I guess I won't risk pressing them, but well, yeah, okay. Maybe you can hear that. It gives a pitch. It says A sharp, for example, G sharp 3, what was it, 180 hertz. It gives these tones in matters of hertz, and as you're speaking, it's measuring how many hertz you have. Now, there's also volume, and that's given in waveform, and it gives it in decibels. Now, as I'm speaking now, it's a wide range between about 40 decibels and 80 decibels. Typically between 60 and 80 decibels, it looks like most of the wavelength. Again, it seems quite within the feminine range. So that's more objective, or as a woman would say, objective. Objective. Um, in the past, there are some people that have said I have a very feminine voice when I do my Samantha voice. There's somebody a former coworker who has said I do sound like a woman when I do that. Now, I at times have heard myself sounding like a high pitched baby or very young girl, which doesn't sound authentic. And that's chiefly the one thing I want to come across as authentic. So, this is more objective. I wrote down the three factors there: pitch, which is given in hertz, tone, and volume in decibels. I looked up the online the averages for those things for a woman, adult female. Pitch, hertz, 200 hertz for frequency. It's only 200 hertz. Tone, I which what I showed you before, and that's connected with A sharp, C nat, G3, C6, so forth. All right, so that I'll explain in a moment. There's pitch, given in hertz, also called frequency. There's tone, which I'll explain in a moment, and there's volume, given in decibels, which is also referred to as intensity or volume. And that for a female, that's 48 to 61. And if I remember correctly reading, I think a male has a wider range of volume than a woman. It was something like 41 to something, and adult female, it's 48 to 61. Now, I'll explain tone. That's where you get into soprano, that's more of a singing aspect. Soprano, and then below that, that's the highest. Below that, I don't think maybe there's ultra soprano. Oh my gosh. Very few, probably, very rare. Below soprano, there's mezzo soprano, there's contralto. I feel like everybody else has learned this but me. I'm a late person to the show. Those are the female singing voices. Now, the male singing voices, countertenor, then below that tenor, and then baritone, and then bass at the very bottom. Thankfully, I don't speak in bass. Now, here's something I fortunately did discover, that these ranges also correlate to the tones. As I said before, F sharp 3, G3, G sharp. I hope I'm saying these correctly. F sharp 3, G3, G sharp 3, A3, A sharp 3, and so forth. I hope that's a sharp, and it's a pound symbol. If I recall correctly, that's a sharp symbol. So soprano goes from A3, which is the A note below middle C, all the way up to F6 or G6. F6 would be something like 1396 hertz, and G6 is something like 1567 hertz. 1567 hertz. Mezzo soprano, which would be normal, the average adult woman's voice would be mezzo soprano. That would be G3, which would be the G note below middle C, all the way up to C6, which would be 1046 hertz. That's a C note more than 2 octaves higher. Actually, that's not that much. I don't have to be speaking way up here. So let me practice. So actually, wait a minute. So let me go back for a moment. I'm shooting just for normal. I don't want to sound like soprano, particularly when I'm speaking. In a speaking conversational voice, I just want to get mezzo soprano. So it says that's G3 to C6. Well, here, G3 is 196 hertz, G sharp 3 is 208 hertz, and A3, that's designated here as the bottom range of soprano, and that's 220 hertz. Now, one of these apps I've had, I think all these apps identify the percentage of your speaking sample, how feminine it is and how masculine it is. And I've routinely hit like 196, 200. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate right here. I'm opening up Eva F here and going to voice tools. Here's pitch tracker. Now I'll start. I will start in this voice. See, already I'm hitting 220, A3. I'll do it again. I'll speak much softly and try to speak in a more conversational tone. I'll try to speak in a more conversational tone. I'll try to speak in a more conversational tone. See, it's very, I don't know how well you can see, but already I'm hitting all those green lines. They're hovering around 220. I don't know the division between each one, but it 220, and that this correlates to A3 up here, and that must be that tone that was that I discovered earlier, that range scale. So it's not that hard. I don't have. See, here we go. Whoops. Whoop. I don't have. Let me get rid of that commercial. Now here is my high-pitched voice. I'm trying to speak like. See, that's 220. I almost have to. Okay, here's my normal speaking male voice. That's at 110. That's A2, 110. See, that's even going between 110 up to about the halfway point to 220. There are 2 bars below 110. I wonder, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 bars after 110 to get to 220. Off the top of my head, I don't. Here, let me. That's about 110 in between. Let me see how much each bar equals in terms of range. That's 110 divided by 4 equals 27. So roughly about 30. That's 30 hertz for every bar, every line. All right, so, whoops, I don't want to hear that. It's a commercial break, and hopefully my speaking voice will drown that out. Okay, so every bar here, so 1 bar below 220 would be like, would be 190. So if I'm speaking like this I'm speaking like this in my normal tone, so I'm fluctuating between 190 and about 140. Which is, I guess, normal male voice. Perhaps the higher end, I don't know, but normal male voice. I think normal male voice goes up to about 165. And there's a bit of an overlap between the high male voice and low female voice. So if I'm naturally speaking like that, it doesn't take that much effort and I don't want to exert myself. I want to sound as natural as possible. So as I'm speaking conscientiously or consciously like this, I'm hitting, let me see. Oops, let me drown that out again. This is really annoying to have to do this because the one drawback about this app is that every time you start over it runs that stupid commercial or a stupid commercial. Now, as I'm speaking like this is my voice of feminine This is my voice of femininity without exerting much effort. See, that's within the range of 220. That's slightly below, slightly above 220. So I'm pretty good. Now there are these other apps. They help. Here's voice tools. I'll go back to voice tools. It's measuring this volume is measuring decibels. Right now, I have a wide range. I'm going between a little below 30, about 37 maybe, all the way up to about 75. And it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. So that just indicates to me, this is a good learning experience. It's not only telling me how close I am objectively to coming across in a feminine voice, but it's also educating me on how my normal speaking voice is and how it measures up and so forth. Um, so these apps can let you record your sample your voice one actually lets you record your voice, and it measures it and tells you the percentage of masculinity or femininity in the voice. Um, Let me see. There are other aspects. So I've already explained tone pretty well. Tone is that A sharp, you know, F natural, C4, da 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 da, and that directly correlates, equates, one for the other with hertz. So basically, I'd have to just concentrate on the frequency. I'd want to stay at that 200 hertz range, maybe a little higher. I don't want to go too high, or that would send red flags as well, just as much as I would be speaking low or too low. Now, there's another aspect that before getting into this, that I was trying to do. Andrea James, in her set of videos, encourages an exercise in speaking like this. She gives two examples, and she chuckles because they both involve the word man. There's a song by the Bee. Okay, there are two songs that she mentions: walk like a man, talk like a man, and then the other song, well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man. It's an exercise, I suppose, in getting that almost nasally voice combined with the pitch. I'd have to go back and look at it more. Now that I know this, go back to those videos and see if I can integrate what she's talking about with this. I don't want to simply do high pitched. I want to do those vibrations, that humming technique that she said, and that nasally voice to perhaps sound more authentic. I've noticed that some women have what's called some women have like a humming when they speak. And Andrea James, I'm not sure if it's a humming, but that extra quality, Andrea James said that you should try to unify the two, the pitch, the high pitch, the higher pitch, along with this nasally, I call it nasally, that walk like a man, that aspect. Merge that together. And also also voice coaches, voice feminization coaches speak about talking more in the head voice rather than in the chest voice, and speaking more forwardly, like in the throat, rather than deep in the chest. I think I can do that pretty well. I still want to practice on it. I still want to practice that. So it doesn't look like as much as I had thought it was. Of course, mentally, in terms of just simply observation and listening, I've noticed that women do the inflections on words. They speak up, they tend to, particularly younger women, tend to upward turn their voices when they speak, like I just did. And I've also noticed that, now I don't want to do it too much. I don't want to exaggerate it, because I've noticed some women do it less than others. Obviously, some do it more than others, some do it less than others. But that and man, I've noticed women tend to have that sound when they pronounced a. I've also noticed, as I said before, connect and cutting their syllables apart, emphasizing the syllables more than men would, like conversation. I've also noticed, whereas I would say movie, I'd have to be conscious of saying movie and to and do. It's almost like you're replacing "oh" with "you." You, movie, food. I don't know what causes that, but I've noticed it, and I think it's authentic. I want to be wary. I am wary of falling into the trap of um, picking up poor speaking skills that some women have. I want to divide that from simply biological affectations that normal women have. Um, so I guess that about wraps it up. I can't think of anything else. So, oh, also speaking more softly, and I don't mean whispering. Now, somebody gave me good feedback, and I don't want to say the person's name, but from that last video I put up where I'm interviewing Samantha and essentially interviewing myself, uh, she gave me feedback. She said, one, it was a girly sounding voice, too girlish, and number two, it was more of a whispering voice, and I've noticed that too. Uh, but I'm glad that she pointed it out. Even that came across. Even she could notice that. Uh, I also don't want to talk in too much of a whispery, soft tone because people who are hard of hearing or just perhaps have normal hearing won't even hear me. And I know that women don't speak like that. Women may tend to speak more softly. Women may tend to speak more softly, but they don't talk like this. And they don't talk like this. So I'll keep working at it. And I know if I had been able, if I know that I had been able to get my physical appearance pretty good. I know I can get my voice up to those levels or those standards as well. And this is good education in terms of singing. My mom uh, enjoyed music. Uh, in childhood, she grew up with a piano, regular normal size piano. I guess her mom had a piano, or that in their apartment they had a piano, and she got me an electronic keyboard when I was a teenager or adolescent, something like 14, age 14, and sometimes I would hear her in the distance in another room, just simply singing or usually playing on the electronic keyboard that she got me. So she enjoyed music, and there's something soothing and calming about music. Perhaps one of the reasons I think she wanted me to get into music or singing, not necessarily singing, but just appreciating music more. And that's why I imbued in Samantha that interest in singing. That's one of the reasons. The other being that poetry that I had done for a little bit in senior year of high school. And I wonder if perhaps it was cut short, and I don't want the reason it was cut short to remain that way. Um, so I'll end it with this, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time, and hopefully my speaking voice of Samantha will be a lot better. I'm making remarkable progress. All right, so long.